Welcome to the first episode of Painted Haint, the podcast, for the year of our Lord 2025. Here's to new subscribers, insane content, and likes. Lots of likes. Please like my videos. I attempt to put a lot of effort into these. Anyways, um, today's episode is a special one because to honor what could be the season finale of America, I am going to tell y'all about the most iconic residence in America, the White House. Honestly, after researching for this video, politics aside, I would like to visit this place. I have never been to the White House. Like I've been all over DC, but never been to the White House. Um, I think I've heard it's like really hard to get tickets there, to into the place. So that might be why, and we just were like, yeah, no. But it's really interesting, like when you really think about what it not what it I don't want to say what it stands for, but like the fact that it is a museum and a living residence. Like that's really cool. So here is the history. I hope this is brief, but we're gonna do a little brief history of the White House, so we can understand where some of these stories come from. Because you know my philosophy, if you've been listening or watching the videos, usually these ghost stories are tied to things that happened, occurred, or just the land itself. That's what the ghost stories are tied to. So let's go into that. So we got to start first of all with the city of Washington D.C. D.C. was founded on July 16, 1790, and established by the Constitution of the United States to serve as the nation's capital. So President George Washington chose the site despite Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson's input, because they wanted, they just, that we ain't getting into that. They put it this way, they wanted things, and he was just like, yeah, no. So the site was along the Potomac and Anacostia rivers, and Maryland and Virginia would cede or adopt their land to this new district. So they give their land to this new district. And President Washington would also appoint Pierre Charles L'Enfant, who presented, according to Washington.org, this is where I got a lot of my information from, a bold, modern city featuring grand boulevards and ceremonial spaces, which was very reminiscent of L'Enfant's native Paris. The city was designed on a grid system, with the center being the Capitol building. So I guess it'd be easier to get around. And I think that was just a common thing back in the day, because, I mean, a lot of historical cities have that, like, grid setup. So L'Enfant did set aside an area for the White House, but he did not design the White House. So in 1792, a public competition was held to choose the designer. There will be a ton of contestants, including, why is this funny to me? Thomas Jefferson, who had a pseudonym for his design, and he would choose the initials AZ. I guess he thought no one would notice. I mean, I don't know why that's funny to me. He was just trying to get any kind of control with the White House in Washington, D.C. So the winner, however, would be an Irish-American architect by the name of James Hoban. And this win resulted in a commission and $500,000 prize. So he would design the mansion in the Georgian and Palladian style. I can never explain Georgian style, but I mean, just think of the White House, and that's Georgian and Palladian style. And the home would consist of 3 floors and more than 100 rooms. It is built in sandstone or from sandstone, imported from quarries along Aquia Creek in Virginia, and the first cornerstone was laid on October 13, 1792. And if I remember, sandstone is usually related to like paranormal activity. That's like the theory, so just keep that in mind. So the first president to live in the home, even while it was still being built, was John Adams. and he would move in on November 1st. In a letter to his wife, he would include this blessing: I pray heaven to bestow the best of blessings on this house and all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof. And that, children, is what you call irony. I'm trying not to be so political, but this is the White House. I just find that funny given the current state we're in. But Abigail, on the other hand, so like he puts this blessing in, excuse me, but his wife Abigail was not happy with the state of the place. She would write, there is not a single apartment finished. We have not the least fence. Yeah, there was no fence around the White House. Fence, yard, or other conveniences outside. So I guess they didn't have a toilet, which makes me wonder. I guess they would have used a chamber pot, but I'm like, wait, where did they go to the bathroom? But she also says, I use the great unfinished audience room or the East Room as a drying room for hanging up the clothes. And I'm just going to tell you right now, because I didn't include her in the ghost stories. Her ghost is seen hanging up laundry in the East Room, or you have the scent of clean, fresh laundry, and that's a very specific scent, clean laundry. So that's more of a comforting ghost story, in my opinion. But yeah, she's one of the ghosts that I didn't include. So fast forward to the War of 1812, and it gets heated, literally. So because the British would burn the White House down during the War of 1812, I thought it only received damage. But no, they burnt that shit down. So the executive home would have to be rebuilt because of the burning. But they did a couple of upgrades. So the White House actually has, many upgrades throughout the years. And the reconstruction of the executive residence saw an east and west terrace on the main building's flanks, a south portico, and in the 1820s, a north portico would be added. And the name White House would actually be coined by President Theodore Roosevelt in 1901. So now we go on to the White House ghost, which is what we're here for. So clearly the White House has seen quite a few things in its 233 years of being in existence. So this is literally the original haunted house. I think I've heard people refer to this as like, this is the granddaddy of haunted houses, I guess because it's the White House. So honestly, I don't know where to start. I actually wrote this in here. I was like, I don't know where to start. So I think I'm going to do a top 5 and start with the creepiest stories. So this is one that I never heard about, or I vaguely remember reading in this book that I used to have that disappeared from the house. And this is The Thing. So this, like I said, is a new one for me. So during President Taft's time in the White House, his staff claimed to have seen a ghost they called The Thing. However, the spirit is not an amorphous figure, it's a person. Because, usually when you think thing, you're like, it's like a blob. But it's a person. The Thing is described as a teenage boy, to be specific, who looks to be 14 to 15 years of age. It was reported by Taft's military secretary, Archibald Butt, who's actually from Georgia, so shout out to Augusta. So he's the one who reports this story. They say that the first knowledge that one has of the presence of the thing this is his quote, is a slight pressure on the shoulder as if someone were leaning over your shoulder to see what you might be doing. The Thing was also seen by servants, particularly a maid by the name of Florence Marsh, and she described him as being light-haired with sad blue eyes. And I think that President Taft was both terrified and annoyed by this story, because he threatened to fire the next staffer that repeated the story or reported the story. But he actually would ask around. So him and Archibald Butt would ask around, like, about White House history, who this could be. And other people have asked the same question: who is the thing? So my research immediately brought up Willie Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's son, who died while his father was in office in the White House from typhoid fever. And he was 11, so he wasn't. I mean, he was a couple years off of that age range. But don't worry. Long before him, there was another ghost. I'm sorry, I just paused on that. So Archibald was on the case with it. And he does a lot of research. And he would pass away, unfortunately, in the sinking of the Titanic before he could crack the case of the thing. But here are the alleged identities of the ghosts. So you have Alexander Kerr. So Kerr was a 9-year-old boy who was attacked by President Jefferson's ram in 1808. And I got this from this podcast that I cannot recall the name, but you'll see in the references in the show notes. So he was actually cutting through the White House grounds, which were, remember, unfenced at that time. And first of all, yeah, President Jefferson had an aggressive ram just chilling on the White House lawn, and I think they said he was using it for like wool purposes, but this particular ram was said to be a touch aggressive. And by a touch, I mean like he was injuring people. So he obviously injured Alexander Kerr fatally. And, Kerr would die from his injuries. But Alexander Kerr was only 9 years old. So 9 and 15, that's a bit of an age difference. And I think you would know the difference between a 15-year-old boy and a 9-year-old boy, even back then. Although, like, those kids, once they hit, like, their, I say double digits, they aged. So then there's Benjamin Pierce. In this story, it's so sad. Poor baby. So Benjamin Pierce is President Franklin Pierce's son. And he would die in what is described as a freak train accident just after his father was elected president. And it should be noted that Benny did not want his dad to become president. They called him Benny. Nor did his wife. She had convinced President Pierce to retire. And he did, but then he decided, I'm going to run for president anyway. And this is, what happens. So she believed that his political career, this is just a little side note, was the cause for many tragedies that befell the family, including the death of their son, Benjamin. And so he's thought to be one of the possible ID of this ghost, of the thing. So the final possible ID is the ghost of John Burns. So John Burns, was the son of a Scottish planter by the name of David Burns. And he was the original owner of the land in which the White House sits on today. So Mr. Burns, as he was referred to by Thomas Jefferson, was described as stubborn, to say the least. Apparently, Burns wanted to get as much money out of this land deal as he could. And Burns had 350 acres of land. I think he had more than that, because I read 350. I could have sworn I read 350 plus. I mean, 350 is a lot of land. But he would supposedly only be compensated for 80 of those acres. Maybe it's from him being stubborn. However, he still came out of the deal as a wealthy man. So how does this tie into the ghost story thing? Because at first I thought, he's mad because he didn't get his due. Well, John Burns died. His son died at the age of 20. And his death was described as untimely. I mean, he's 20. So, yeah, that is untimely. But which is enough to be a starter for a ghost story, but we're going to go a little deeper and a little farther on that. The Burns home and his sister's home would later be torn down and pretty much absorbed into the DC cityscape. So maybe that's why, if this is him, he is still around. While other planters and farmers around the area were excited to see DC grow and flourish, the Burnses were not, because, they were losing their land. And my theory, though, however, let's go to my theory, is simple. Maybe this ghost, the Thing, is one of the laborers who worked on the White House, or even someone who worked at the rock quarry, in which the sandstone came from. So it might not even be as something as romantic, for lack of a better term, or grandiose as the other ideas and stories that we have, compiled. I just feel like it is somebody from the rock quarry, or maybe one of the laborers. 14 or 15, or was it 15 or 16 years old? You were working at that age. You were just considered another working body during that time. So that's my theory. The other theories I do find are interesting, and they do fit into who this, they keep calling a thing, but I'm like, you sure as a boy, could be, but yeah, that is the thing. So that's number one. So now we're going to talk about Abraham Lincoln and family. So President Lincoln's story is one of the first ones that I heard as a child. When we first visited Washington, D.C., I was 10 or 11 years old. And this is one of the first stories that I read. So the 16th president of the U.S. is still hanging around, and actually had quite a paranormal experience while he was alive. One of the most famous stories involves Lincoln foreseeing his own death in 1865. So according to his friend Ward Hill Lamont, this is what he said. About 10 days ago, I retired very late, and I soon began to dream. There seemed to be a death-like stillness about me. Then I heard subdued sobs, as if a number of people were weeping. I thought I had left my bed and wandered downstairs, and I arrived at the East Room. Why is the East Room involved in so many ghost stories? Anyways, before me was a catafalque on which rested a corpse wrapped in funeral vestments. Around it were stationed soldiers who were acting as guards, and there was a throng of people, some gazing mournfully upon the corpse, whose face covered, others weeping pitifully. So some of their faces were covered, others were weeping. And who is dead in the White House? I demanded of one of the soldiers. And the soldier said, the president. He was killed by an assassin. Now, if that don't give you chills, then you're a strong person, because that completely ended me the first time I heard it. Because the other version I heard is that he looked and saw his own face, and I was like, yeah, no, that'll make you, hell, I'd have quit. Like, give this to somebody who was next in line, Ulysses S. Grant. Give him, I don't care if he's fighting down south. Bring him up here and put him in, because I'm not doing this no more. So, like, even now, as I was, like, typing that story, I'm like, this is creepy, but these are some bars. Like, these are creepy bars. I love it. So, we know that President Lincoln would be shot by John Wilkes Booth at Ford's Theater on April 14th, 1865, the same year that he had this premonition-like dream. And he would die. So he was shot on April 14th. A lot of people think he died like right then, but he would pass away the day after, on April 15th of that year. So, Lincoln got shot at Ford's Theater. He's seen it at Ford's Theater, by the way, too. But we're focusing on the White House. So Lincoln is now seen in the White House, specifically the Yellow Oval Room, and of course, his bedroom. So one of the most famous encounters involves Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands, who actually fainted at the sight of the 16th president. There's another story that's, I think the word's apocryphal, where, what's his name? British guy. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, got out of the bathtub, and Lincoln was just standing there in the middle of the room, and Churchill was naked, and he was like, "Hey, Mr. President." They said that story is not true, but that's crazy. It's kind of funny. That's probably the way I'd react. Or I'd be like, "God damn, Lincoln," trying to wrap myself in a towel. But that's another story that I've heard. But back to Queen Wilhelmina, poor thing, she fainted. She blacked out, and I think when she came to, she was like, "It's so freaking Lincoln." She didn't say freaking Lincoln, but So he was also seen by President Coolidge's wife, Grace Coolidge, in the Yellow Oval Room as well. She said she saw him staring out the window, arms clasped behind his back, and he was, staring out at the Potomac River. It's said that President Lincoln always shows up when the country is in strife or turmoil. So I'm pretty sure in the last several years we've been seeing him a lot, which some of y'all might think is a hot take, but yeah, try not to be spicy, I promise. But I mean, like, I'm pretty sure he's the hardest working president right now. With all the stuff that's been going on. So Lincoln's son Willie, whom we mentioned earlier, is also seen in the White House. And it should be noted that Mrs. Lincoln will perform seances in the executive mansion, specifically in the Red Room, to try to reach her son. And according to whitehouse.org, she did 8 seances to reach Willie. And I also want to note that this was her way of processing her grief. So, like, a lot of people just like, she was crazy, she was doing seances. But this was a way to process her grief. And also, spiritualism had really come, which is what this is part of. Spiritualism had come up during the Civil War era because, people are going through a pretty traumatic time, losing loved ones due to the war and such things like that. So they start to focus on seances and, this sort of thing. So that was something that people kind of skip over. They're just like, she's crazy. But she'd actually lost a son previous to Willie, Eddie. And apparently the seances worked because Mary Todd Lincoln claimed to have seen him she would write to her half-sister, "Willie lives. He comes to me every night and stands at the foot of the bed with the same sweet, adorable smile that he always has had. He does not always come alone. Little Eddie, her son that perished at the age of 4, is sometimes with him." That's sweet, but also kind of creepy, because I mean, she's grieving, but me who's not in a state of grief, if I saw one of my relatives, I mean, it's different because this is her child, but if I saw one of my relatives just pop up in front of my bed, I'm screaming. I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I might throw something. Sorry, grandma, great grandma. She'll understand. She knew I was a scary child. But, yeah, so, like, the Lincolns are seen in the White House. I didn't see anything, or I may have missed it, about Mary Todd Lincoln appearing in the White House. But definitely President Lincoln himself, because he was having a time as president. So I would imagine he's got some unfinished business that he wants to finish. Maybe, I don't know, I really do think that Lincoln's thing is unfinished business. And like many other presidents, this presidency aged him. Like, he already wasn't a very attractive man, but they said that it kind of broke him down, especially with the Civil War happening. It really broke him down. So I'm not surprised that he is still hanging around. And maybe when the country is in, turmoil and strife, he's appearing to, give some advice. But they say he's always quiet, so. Or maybe he's like a harbinger for like some shit's about to go down. You might want to figure it out. But yeah. So that is Lincoln, President Lincoln, and family. So now to Andrew Jackson. Oh, Hickory. Oh, Hickory. If there is one thing I don't like, it is disembodied laughter. And that is exactly what this story entails. So, President Andrew Jackson, aka Old Hickory himself, is said to haunt the White House. So, Mary Lincoln, how fitting, heard him laughing gutturally, might I add, on many occasions. Like, imagine Abraham is out somewhere and you just hear, you know, I can't do guttural laughter, but imagine you hear that and you're in the White House, you know, in the living space, more or less by yourself. What are you going to do? First of all, I'm going to go out, sit on the porch, and wait for my fam to come back home. But I think Mary Todd was stronger than most of us. I mean, for God's sake, she was living during the 1800s. But she heard him laughing. She said she would, so here it is. She said she would also hear him stomping and cursing around the house. I'm thinking that maybe Andrew Jackson did not like the Lincolns, because that's what that sounds like. Like, you know, he's running over toys. Oh, God damn it, you know, and saying, probably, I don't know. I feel like Andrew Jackson would have said the most heinous curse words, like things that would make your grandma shudder. So she would hear him often stomping around and cursing, which is also just rude. But if you know about Andrew Jackson, I mean, it makes perfect sense. He did, like, field goal kick a whole mess of First Nations people, Native Americans, off their ancestral lands. So, rude is his thing. Yeah, he gives menace energy, because I think he's the one with, like, the big cheese that he just had this giant wheel of cheese that he refused to let go. I don't even think he was eating off the cheese. The cheese was just there in the White House vibing. That is a whole nother story. That's not my wheelhouse, my wheel of cheese, to deal with. But there are, just Google it. There are many podcasts that talk about that wheel of cheese. So I literally included this story because of the laugh alone. I hate it for Mary Todd and all other staffers who had to hear his laugh. Because I'm pretty sure you still might hear this just random ass laughter, you know, just reverberating through the house. And you know it's not the current president. Like, you know it's not, you know, like our most you know it's not Joe Biden, because he's soft-spoken. So, you know it's not him. Watching, I don't know, what do people in their 80s, Matlock or Seinfeld, something like that. So that's creepy. No, or for in Mary Todd's case, you know it's not like a TV, you know. But now on to number 4. We're coming down to the wire. So, the soldier. Apparently, there is one British soldier who is very overzealous about his job from 1812. So, he is said to be a ghostly figure. Obviously, he's a ghost of a soldier who has been seen carrying a torch, seemingly reliving the events of burning the White House down. And I don't know why I immediately thought of a frat boy. Just like, we got to burn the house down, yeah, bro. Or like a football hooligan. You know, just running around trying to set the White House on fire again. And this makes me wonder, like, this was like what I was working on last night, is how does the Secret Service, like, how do they deal with that? Like, have they seen him, or like, they're the security force. Have they seen this rando redcoat just like running around trying to light the White House on fire? Because how do you react to that? Who do you tell? I don't know if I would tell the president, because I'm sure it happens late at night where it's just like, you don't want to wake him up because, the president has a long day. So you don't want to be like, hey, Mr. President, we just apprehended a suspect who's trying to burn down the White House. He was dressed in a red coat and a tricorn hat. He's see-through. Just want to let you know. Like, I mean, how do they deal with that? In that story, the first time I heard it, I was like, wow, that's scary. But then, like, when you look at it from a comedic standpoint, you're like, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. That man is still, like, you burned it down, you idiot. Like, you burnt the White House down. Your job is done. I think you're like a pyromaniac and you enjoy this shit. That's unhealthy. Don't do that. That's what I think number 4 entails. I said it's scary in the way that if you're working as a security detail on the White House property and you see that, you're like, wait, what? Are we doing a reenactment? And you're like, no, that person's see-through. Like I don't know. That not so much. Okay. It's scary if you put it in the mind of, if you're in the mindset of like a security detail. But if you're just thinking about it from just a civilian standpoint and you have a dark sense of humor, or a sense of humor, period, that's funny. There's something so stupid and sort of Monty Python about it. Like, I'm just gonna keep trying to burn this shit down. I burned it down, but I'm gonna keep doing it. And now for number 5, the final countdown, Dolly Madison. She's an honorable mention. So this is Dolly Madison and the Rose Garden. This is my favorite story. And it's not because I have a green thumb. I can't grow shit. It's more so because it's just like, she was like, oh, hell no. So she's also one of my favorite first ladies, because she just has this feistiness. Like, this is a woman, if I remember correctly, this is the woman who was like, oh, the British are coming? Yeah, we're going to have a party anyway. Bring out the silverware, Jeeves. Take that rack of lamb off the stove. We are going to party. We're going to show them how we Americans get down. But, yeah. Like, that's why she's my favorite. Sydney Black does a video on her that's awesome. I would encourage you to listen or watch her video. So during the Wilson presidency, I'm not trying to be spicy, but I was like, First Lady Edith Wilson got the bright idea to move the famous Rose Garden from where it stood. And I'm not sure what she was going to put in its place. Maybe maybe flowers that she liked. I don't know. But they said that she wanted to move the Rose Garden. And so she instructed the gardeners to do so, and her being the first lady, like, okay, cool, we'll do it. Well, First Lady Dolly Madison was not having it, because she appeared to the gardeners and snapped at them for digging up her roses. And I like to think they had broken the soil. They just like bit the soil with the shovel, with the spade of the shovel, and in swoops Dolly, just going off. And she was like 6'1", like she was like super tall. So she just coming in there like an Amazon woman, like, don't touch my rose garden, going Super Saiyan. And I don't blame her, because roses are a lot of work. Like, I feel like that roses and tulips, like, that's not a flower that you can just be like, I'm gonna grow some roses. Like, I mean, that's my favorite story, because I didn't know she was tall till I saw Sydney Black's video, and I just imagine this tall, not hulk of a woman, but tall woman just coming at you, and in that like Jane Austen style clothing, because she was also said to be very, not gaudy, but she would wear like the finest clothes, because she grew up in a religion where they were like, you only wear black. So I just imagine like this immaculately dressed woman just coming at these gardeners, and they're like, that's fucking Dolly Madison. And they run off and they drop their tools and they're like, yeah, First Lady, yeah, we can't do that. So till this day, the Rose Garden stands. I think the last First Ladies who worked with the Rose Garden were, I know Michelle Obama was working on the Rose Garden. I can't remember if Jill Biden, I would imagine she would, because like I've seen her clothes. Homegirl loves florals. She loves her a floral print, so I'm pretty sure she worked with the Rose Garden as far as like adding new roses and revitalizing it, but I don't know about this next one. Well, we saw during the first go round, she said their Rose Garden. You know what though? I don't blame her, because you don't want Dolly Madison coming for your throat. And also, if you don't have a green thumb, just don't fool with it. Don't fool with it. So I really can't be like, you know, oh, she didn't do anything with the Rose Garden. Because, I mean, if you, like, also, if that's not your interest, you know, what are you going to do? But, yeah, that's my favorite story. And I think my favorite is just because, this is my favorite because of the reenactment that they do on Haunted History. They just show this woman and she's got on, you know, the historical dress, and there are these two guys, and they I love how they just threw their gardening tools down and just dipped. Like just got up out of there, you know. But yeah. So there was one more story that I was like, I don't want to add this. And so I'm going to, and since I'm hyped now, and that is the story of Mary Surratt. So Mary Surratt was I believe she was the daughter of one of the conspirators for killing President Lincoln, so for the Lincoln assassination plot. She is said, the daughter, to bang on the door of the White House, so the front door, begging for them to not execute her mother. Her mother does get executed, so this is just a fruitless errand, a fool's errand, if you will. So yeah, she's said to like bang on the door, and I didn't see any reports about people hearing this banging, but you gotta wonder. Like, imagine it's late at night. I mean, I'm sure this happens during the day as well, but imagine it's late at night and you just hear bang, 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 and you're just like, oh my God, like, what is going on? And, you know, part of you is like, well, this is an old house. The other part is like, no, that sounds like someone's knocking on the door. How did they get over the fence? So that one isn't so much as scary as it is just sad. But yeah. So, this has been a Painted Haint podcast, the first episode of 2025. I'm going to try to work on my podcast for the first few months of the year, and then I'm going to go back to posting videos. I'm on Red Note right now, since TikTok is possibly on its way out. So, you will probably see shorts. Also, you'll see pictures on Red Note from me. You'll see shorts on YouTube from me, or little short videos. Also on my Instagram, on paintedhaint_21. You'll see shorts there as well that I used to do on TikTok. So hopefully that'll work out. And I will see you on the next Painted Haint. And by the way, so follow me on, also Tumblr. So let me tell you where to follow me. You can follow me on Instagram, paintedhaint_21. Of course, you can still follow me here on YouTube at HaintBlueRe. You can follow me on Tumblr. Just search up my name. I can't remember my name right now. Adri Hayes. Or, let's see, Red Note. I'm also Adri Hayes on there. I'm trying to think. I thought I had another platform that I use. I don't think I do. But I will see you on the next Painted Haint podcast. So the next one, we are going to be celebrating Gasparilla Festival, Gasparilla Fest, which happens in Tampa, but I'm broke and I have something to do that weekend. It's very important, so I won't be down in Tampa. But we will talk about pirates, lady pirates, men pirates, and Gasparilla himself, the man of the hour. So I will see you on Friday. We're going to talk about that. All right. So have a nice weekend since I'm recording on Saturday, or a nice week, a nice day, a nice night, a nice twilight. I don't know. But I will see you later. Bye.